everyone, Eric here. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I am super excited to be introducing you to my close friend, Luis Molina. He is a recent Berkeley graduate, and he's currently a consulting analyst at Accenture. Luis was able to successfully purchase his first investment property in the Bay Area of all places, which is highly competitive and also very expensive. So I am super excited to be having you today, Luis. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. I'm very passionate about music. I play piano and drums. In
Nice.
fact, I teach during the weekend sometimes.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you also perform for your church, right? You play piano for the church every Sunday?
It's more so like something that I do some Sundays. It's part of me giving back to the community.
Man, that's awesome. I really do see you as a success story, Luis. You managed to successfully get admission into Haas School of Business, and then you transition into your role as a consulting analyst at Accenture. But really, what I would love to gather a little bit more information about is what it was like to buy your first investment property at the age of 23. That is pretty remarkable. So do you mind elaborating on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I mean, what worked for me might not work for everyone. So everyone listening, I don't think it's the same.
Hmm.
Um, it's not one size fits all. But I'll tell you about my experience, and hopefully people can learn about the things that maybe they can apply to their lives, or maybe they can't. So
Hmm.
the first thing for me was understanding how much I could afford. So I knew right off the bat that I was counting on my income only. So that means that I could only save X amount of dollars every single month. So that leads me to, asking myself, how much can I actually save in 1 year? And how much can I actually afford for a down payment? The thing about buying a house is you don't have to have a 20% down payment to get a property,
It's true.
although it's recommended.
Right.
However, um, I know many people that have done it, but I certainly couldn't afford to put down a 20% down payment
Right.
um, when I had been working only for a year, right?
Yep.
So I knew that my goal was going to be from the time that I started working, and I guess the time period for saving was going to be 1 year, which I knew I was only going to be able to afford around 10% of whatever the cost of the home would be.
Hmm.
And that was probably going to be between $500 and $600,000. So
Right.
that's the first thing is how much can you actually afford?
Hmm.
For me, it was between $500,000 and $600,000 at a 10% down payment.
Right.
Okay, so once you have that question answered and figured out, you have a plan, you have to know how to budget. So this is really something that it's a must, unless you're going to get money from your uncle, your dad, or your grandparents, or whoever,
Right.
who can just hand you $100,000 or so. Then
Hmm.
that's a different case. In my case, I had no one to hand me any money, so I had to be very strategic with how I was going to spend my money.
Yep.
Month to month, I would save up between 60 and 70% of my income,
Cool.
and if I could do more, I would. So some months I would do 80%, and I would also keep myself accountable. So I actually asked my mom to pretty much take me through once a month. It didn't even have to be every day, right? Once a month, she would call me and tell me, "Hey, how's your saving plan going? Are you staying on track?" So
Nice.
I would recommend that whoever's listening, if you want to be on a budget and you're comfortable with sharing your finances with someone you trust,
Hmm.
and if you feel like you can't have control of what you're going to spend, I think having an accountability partner is going to be really helpful for you. For me,
Nice.
it definitely was. So
Yeah.
having that phone call every single month, I knew I was gonna get asked the question, so I was ready to answer. And for the most part, I was able to stay on track.
Nice, man. Yeah, accountability, buddy, is definitely very, very important. The person that I interviewed last, his name is Chris. Tune into episode 1. he he uses me as his accountability buddy. I remember the other day he reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, man, like, do you think it would be like wise for me to purchase this?" I think he was looking at Rolexes. I was like, "Man, do you really want to hit $1 million? Like, I'm going to get there first if you buy that Rolex. I'm guaranteeing you that. He's like, all right, you're right. So yeah, I completely
Yeah.
agree with you. I agree, man.
Yeah. So, once you have your budget plan, how much you're going to save. So, right, we covered so far how much you can afford. Then we talked about saving, which really comes down to your budgeting habits. Okay. Once you have these two in place, I think you're ready to think about your credit score. You're ready to think about the things that are going to help you to get the loan.
Right.
Right. So the things that helped me to get a loan were my credit score and my work history. Now, I'm going to talk about my work history first. In in California,
Mm-hmm.
if you graduate with a degree, let's say in business or in science,
Mm-hmm.
say engineer, and you work in that field,
Yep.
you don't actually have to work for 2 years
Mm-hmm.
to be able to qualify for a loan
Right.
because your education actually counts as work experience.
Exactly. Yep.
And so it's different. That's what I'm saying. If you are a student listening and you are studying business or engineering and you go into that field, um, you can actually qualify for a loan without having to work for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
if
Yep.
you're not a student and you don't have that background, then I think you have to have a 2 year work history to be able to apply for a loan. And this is a conventional loan. Now, I don't know about FHA. I don't know about the others.
Right.
We can cover that another day. But for a conventional loan, I believe that is exactly how things are done to this
Yep.
day.
Yep. That's what I
So
heard as well. Yep.
yeah. So then it once you have your work history, so of course you have to have employment. They asked me for how much I made. They asked me for proof of employment. They asked me for even letters of recommendations from my employer to be able to verify that I was making that amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And once they received all that information, the only thing that was actually the most important thing actually is your credit. And to be able to have a good credit score, I looked into different options. I started financing a credit card since my junior year in college.
Cool.
Um, I would make payments. I would help my sister to make car payments.
Okay.
So I put like a car payment under my name so that I could build credit. But if you don't have that option, you don't have to do it. You can simply get one or two credit cards and make sure you make your payments every single month and build that credit score
Mm-hmm.
over time.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to get started early. I'm super lucky, me personally, that my parents, started me with a credit card at, I think I was 17, 18 years old. So I already have like 6 years of, credit history built up. So if the best time to start a credit card is yesterday, if you're really looking to build your credit score right now.
Yeah, and use it. Like don't just have your credit cards just sit in your wallet. Like actually use it and
Right.
be intentional about it. So yeah, this is not hard to do. I think getting a credit card is the easiest part of the process if you don't already have one. So yeah, that's really important to get a loan. And then
Yep.
move to the next thing. Right? It's like once you have your how much you can afford, then you have your budget every single month. You're saving that amount of money. You have your 1 year horizon and you have that goal that you want to make it to that 1 year end. And then you have your credit score in line. Then you really have to think about who's going to lend you the money, right?
Yep.
So that for me is where the question started to happen because I think everything else is a little bit easier to do.
Right.
But choosing a lender and knowing the difference between like a bank and a credit union
Mm-hmm.
can actually be really helpful. So when I approached the banks, I went to Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chase. I also looked at credit unions like One Credit Union, Travis Credit Union. Um, there's one more that I looked at. I can't really remember the name, but here's the big difference for anyone listening. I personally went with a credit union because they're local. In fact, I worked for a credit union when I was a sophomore in college,
Yep.
and I learned by working for a credit union that they don't actually have shareholders. So in the United States, credit unions are just like banks, except they don't need to report to shareholders. So that means that the profits that they make at the end of the year get distributed to the shareholders, which are the members. So
Oh,
those are the people who have their money in the credit union, and those are called the members. And so credit unions are often harder to get a loan with because they're strict, but many times they give you better loan rates. And that's a huge win
right.
versus a bank who is for profit and reporting directly to stakeholder needs. They actually have very competitive rates. But if you want to work locally with a credit union and you don't mind knowing that it's a smaller kind of bank, and you don't, I mean, they're backed by the NCUA, so it's just like a bank, right? Your money's still backed, your loans are still backed, so there's no need to worry there. But some people feel uncomfortable working with credit unions, and I
Smaller
understand that.
companies.
So
That makes
when
sense.
I was purchased, when I was looking for loans, I went to the credit union, the banks, and I compared, I think I did around, let's see, 10 comparisons between banks and credit unions to see who was going to give me the best rate. And that's why it's important, because in the very beginning, I remember the banks were giving me like a 3.7%. Okay. I remember the best interest rate that I received was around a 3.4. And I knew I could probably do better. So I went to the credit unions. The credit union said 3.3, 3.25, but I still felt like it wasn't good enough. So I started just calling more lenders, and finally I got my loan with Travis Credit Union. I got a 3.25% loan, and they were able to cover all my closing costs. And of course, let me tell you the trick here for everyone listening. When they say they're going to cover all your closing costs, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get free money. They're actually going to put it in your loan. But sometimes closing costs can be upwards between $20,000 and $30,000, sometimes even more, sometimes a little less. But let me tell you that for me, I had only been saving up for a year. I didn't want to spend all my, majority of my down payment covering closing costs. So in this situation, I had the option of, the credit union was going to waive my closing costs, but they actually included it in the loan by raising my interest rate. So if they wouldn't have given me money for closing costs, my interest rate would have actually been 3%. But because they gave me money for closing costs,
they raised it.
Exactly, they raised it. So just for everyone listening, it's not like it's free money. It's just a different way of financing your loan.
Over the long run, what do you think is better for your wallet? Is it taking increasing that interest rate and then getting the closing costs wiped off, or is it vice versa? What do you think?
I think it depends. So for me, the strategy was, I'm gonna take the hit in interest rate for maybe 6 months to a year, but I'm gonna refinance. And so when I refinance, I'm gonna lower my rate, because I knew that I had done my research and I knew that interest rates were gonna stay, low for at least a year, or to at least the end of 2021, right? And they're actually lower right now.
Are you going to refinance again, or?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm working on my refinance right now, and once this gets approved, I don't longer have to worry about, having those closing costs incurred in my interest rate. So I would say that the strategy worked for me because of the circumstance right now.
Right. The interest rate continuing to go down.
Exactly. But I would say that if you're looking at financing options, if you're able to cover your closing costs, I would say that that's better than increasing your interest rate.
Right, because it's going to that 3 to 3.25%. That 0.25% is on a $100,000 loan. Roughly speaking, or maybe it was a little bit less for you. What, 500? How much?
Yeah. So for mine, my loan is around 510, I think.
Okay. So yeah, around 500,000. So you're, instead of paying 3%, you were paying 3.25,
2.5.
25%.
Exactly.
So that makes I mean, it's only 1/4%, but on a $500,000 loan, it makes a difference. So yeah, makes sense.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it really depends on the situation. For me, like I said, I thought of the future and I said I think interest rates will stay low. So I'm just gonna take it for now and finance my loan this way.
That's smart.
Okay. So again, choosing the lender is very important. You want to trust the lender. You also want to make sure that you're not getting screwed
Right.
with closing costs. I would say if you're gonna work with like a loan broker, I would say be careful because they usually have, you know, they tend to have high rates. Um, so they charge closing costs, but they also charge you, for their services. So I would say if you can do the work yourself and reach out to lenders and negotiate on your own, you're
Mhm.
actually going to save some money there.
Right.
And then if my recommendation is if you can work with a credit union. But again, if the interest rate is better with a bank, then I think the obvious choice
Right.
would be to go with a
Here's the
bank.
one that's going to be better for your pocket. Great, man. So, you have your credit scoring down, you have the money, now you have the loan as well. So like, where do you go from there? Who's representing you now?
Exactly. This is another really important question, Eric. Glad you asked that. So it's going to be your real estate agent who's going to represent. In this case, her name was Mabel. Mabel was representing me. She was my real estate agent, and she was the one advising me through the purchase of the home, right? So once you have everything approved, then you get your letter that you've been approved, and now you can actually go and shop around for a home. So that's when you need representation, unless you
Right.
have your own real estate license. In my case, I did not.
Right.
So she represented me, and she, would give me lists of homes that were available in the market, and we would go and we would check the house and we would, put our offer. Sometimes, most of the times, we got rejected, not because our application wasn't good, but because during the time that I was trying to buy a house, there was a lot of competition, not only from
Right.
California residents, but from people around the world who saw the United States as a safe investment because of what was happening around the world.
Yeah.
So I had to deal with a lot of that, and I think part of buying a home is getting a real estate agent that understands the market, that has a lot of experience, and that is comfortable with negotiation. Because a lot of times, if your real estate agent does not have great negotiation skills, then your offer might not be appealing,
Right.
or you're probably going to miss an opportunity because you're being misrepresented.
Yep.
So I think asking your real estate agent about their negotiation skills, what they've done in the past, how they've negotiated different deals for their previous clients, that's a really important question. It's not just about what are you going to show me, it's about how are you going to represent me.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah,
want
no,
something that
that's
can.
huge. That's definitely huge. That can literally save you tens of thousands of dollars if you have the right representation. And that competition that you were alluding to, Luis, hasn't gone away by any stretch. Like
No.
it's only gotten worse. So yeah, interest
Yeah.
rates continue to be low, and people are still out there overbidding. So that hasn't.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, like, the property that I purchased already went up in value 14%
Wow.
since I bought it in August, and
Nice.
that's a huge uplift.
Yeah.
I can see, that the trend is not that houses are getting cheaper; they're staying relatively the same, or they're growing,
Right.
meaning their value is increasing, and that's something that I hoped would happen, and I hope it stays that way. But at the same time, for first-time home buyers, those are terrible news, because I remember, trying to purchase a house
Mm-hmm.
and again, getting overbid every time.
Yep.
So then how do you deal with that, right? And that's where I think if for everyone listening, if you're going to take anything away from this is this part. How do you find a house that hasn't hit the market yet?
People.
Exactly.
People that know properties that are coming to market but that haven't yet been listed on the MLS. But before you transition into that, Luis, can you tell me where it is that you found this agent, and like what were the things that you were looking for before you did that? For people that like don't have real estate agents in their network, like how do you find a good one?
So that's a tough question for me because the agent that represented me, she was, she's part of the church I go to. I know her
Oh, okay.
since I was a kid. She's a family friend, who has a lot of experience. So through that, I've been able to, connect with her. But
Okay.
for someone who doesn't have that connection, um, to be honest with you, I would say that word of mouth. If you can ask people that own homes. That's what I would say. Like, yes, you can use the internet, but if you have a neighbor, your parents, ask them if they know anyone that has a, because let me tell you, a lot of real estate agents, the best clients they get is through word of mouth. So their word of mouth is for a lot of agents, it's how they get clients, because you have to trust people. This is not like you're purchasing a very small property. No, especially in California, it's super expensive. There's a lot of competition. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people trying to get your attention. So I think that if I was to not have that connection, I would go and I would ask people, do they know anyone, like my parents or my neighbor? Because everyone has worked with a real estate agent, and if they haven't been represented by one, then that's probably because they have a real estate license and they can do it themselves. So I would say try to find someone that can recommend you, and they can connect you with someone that they trust, because the internet is going to be full of agents. I'm telling you, I got calls from so many agents when I don't even know how they got my phone number, but by clicking on Zillow or these other websites looking for homes, somehow they got my number, and I would get emails all the time,
Yep.
and I never reached out to any of them because I just didn't trust them, and that's not a bad thing, by the way.
Coming from a sales position for me, there's definitely ways of getting your number. Definitely easy, very easy ways of finding
Exactly.
So I'm not surprised that somebody, you hit their website and they're like, all right, I know who you are. I'm going to give you a call.
Exactly. So I got many calls, and yeah, sorry I wasn't able to give your listeners a
No,
good
man.
guidance on how to find a real estate agent.
I think that that's great. Honestly, like having that testimonial is very important. And if you don't have that, like, I mean, you can look on like realtor.com and look at like the top agents, or Zillow. I would imagine that there's like reviews on there as well that you could look at from wherever like area that you're in. And maybe you can find out like specific individuals that have worked with those agents thus far, just as something to give you a little bit more confidence in that agent. So that I think that goes in hand with what you're talking about. But
Yes.
I think that was a great answer. But so now, before I interrupted you, we were going to pivot into like how you actually found the deal that you're in right now. You were talking about how this house wasn't necessarily listed on the MLS, and that's basically just another way of saying like these agents can find these houses and then recommend them to their clients. It's a website, or like a network, basically, for agents to do so. So why don't you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So for me, it was about being active in purchasing a home, and what that means is, you know, when we would go and see a house, we would talk to the real estate agent, or we would talk to the owner if we could, and we would always ask the question, are there any opportunities that you may know about? Are there any other homes that you might be thinking of selling? If so, we're more than happy to talk about it. More than happy to explore that opportunity. Um, and it happened that while I was seeing this house, the owner actually pulled up, and my real estate agent, who this is why it's important to understand if your real estate agent is comfortable with negotiating or asking the right questions. The owner pulls up, and we talk to him, and we say, this house is beautiful. We want to I tell him my intention for buying a home is for my family. I have a
Mhm.
family who we want to live together. We want to help each other out, and this property is going to be a family property, and that's the intention behind it. If you have any other homes that you know about, or any other person that you think can connect us, let us know. And he laughs and he tells me, well, actually, there's a property that I'm thinking of selling next month, but it's actually I haven't even put it in the market yet. And it was as easy as just asking the question, um, and that opened the door. Previous to this experience, we had asked other homeowners who were available to talk with us. Many of them weren't. Many of them, in fact, don't even want to talk to you. So that's don't be offended if the homeowner doesn't want to talk to you. But if the homeowner is there and you're willing to ask those questions, a lot of times they would say things like, "No, this is the only home we're selling," or sometimes they would say, "Actually, I have a friend who might be selling their home. I don't know if this year or next year, but when they saw that I was going to sell my house, they started talking about potentially selling their house. So maybe I can connect you with them." And this opened doors for you to connect with people who are thinking of selling a home, right? There's many websites that can help you to learn, but the thing is, once a home hits that website, so many other people already saw that.
Yep.
So you're
Especially
not
now.
really getting a good deal. You're not really getting that
Right.
information that's it's pretty much available to everyone at that point.
Yeah.
So for me, when I saw this home, the owner said to me, "Yes, I'm actually thinking of selling my own house the next month." And I said, "Perfect. Like, do you mind if we go see your house tomorrow? Do you have time to meet?" And I think he really loved my story. I think he honestly he liked that I was buying a house for my family, and he was willing to help me out. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the case for all your listeners. I'm not sure,
Right.
but I think the takeaway from this is being active doesn't only mean viewing a house, but it also means asking questions, trying to get in contact with the agents. Many times, agents don't want to necessarily respond to you. It's okay, but this is a pursuit of trying to get the best deal, right? So you want to see as many homes as possible, and you want to talk to as many people as possible to get the best deal that you can. That's what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so once I was able to get into the property which so remember, the person who sold me this house was selling a different house. Okay, so to kind of go back to the story, I went to see a different house on a Thursday night, and then the next morning on Friday, that owner called me and said, "Hey, why don't you come look at the house which we talked about yesterday? I think it's going to fit your family well." And so I go, shows me the house. It's exactly what I was looking for, 2,400 square feet. The entire property, it's around 8,000 square feet. And
Nice.
I was thinking, this is my family perfect. And I tell him, so, I'm ready to make a deal. I already knew because of my real estate agent how much the house was going to cost. So I was already thinking in the realms of how much he was going to ask. And to my surprise, he tells me, "I really like your story, and I'm not looking for money. I want to help you." And so he tells me, "I'm going to give you a family discount." So he actually gave me a very significant family discount that till this day I realize that it was a huge blessing, something that I had been praying for, my family had been praying for, and we actually got a sweet deal. I think where the values, I mean, the house of the value right now versus the price that I purchased it for, we've probably saved around 90 or $100,000 around there
Wow. That's crazy.
in terms of how much this house could have gone for.
Right.
Um, so you can call it a miracle, which it probably is, but I think to the people listening, just don't lose hope when you get rejected. When
Right.
you put in an offer and you hear no, it's okay. Like, just keep saving more money,
Mm-hmm.
and stay on top of the budgeting, and continue to put offers in homes that you find that are gonna grow in value, that are not overpriced. Because the other thing about the housing market right now is that it's a seller's market,
Right.
and that's really dangerous because you might, or almost, I would say that you're probably going to be overpaying for the house at this moment,
Yep.
which is really dangerous. So be patient, I would say, and do not give in to the game of overbidding. It's a
Yeah,
very dangerous game, and
I heard.
it can be very tempting, to be honest, to say I'll put $20,000 more, I'll put $50,000 more into that, but in the long run,
You're right.
it can really hurt you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree with you, man. It sounds to me like, I mean, you definitely, I would say you got lucky to an extent, but you also made your own luck. It wasn't something where it just kind of came to you. Like you put yourself out there, you spoke with agents, you found your curiosity, you found this property, and through your story and for buying the property for the right reasons, you were able to find a significant or get a significant discount on the property itself. So I think that your story is definitely inspiring and something that for me, again, I see it as a success story for you to grow up here and put your family in a house. I think that's amazing, and congratulations, my dude, on that one. I'm
Thank you.
also looking to get into my house soon, so I'll definitely invite you to the housewarming event as well.
Yeah, I'm expecting a barbecue.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. But is there anything in terms of the home buying experience that I didn't ask that you think would be valuable to the listeners?
I think we pretty much covered everything. I think the last thing is wherever you choose to buy, don't only think about, let's say if you look at a community, don't only look at what it is now. Think about the trends.
Mm-hmm.
Where are people going in that city? Like,
Austin.
you know, exactly, like, are coffee shops arising? Are bars coming more? Do you see bars opening? Right now it's difficult because of the
Right,
situation, but
right.
you
Yeah.
know, what I try to do is see, like, is there opportunity where you can make some type of money. In California it's difficult because, for example, you try to buy a house in San Francisco, it's going to be a
Yeah.
long shot for someone who doesn't have that generational wealth
Right.
or some sort of magic wand. But if you want to purchase a property, I would say think about the trends that are going on in that community. And it's not like rocket science. You just have to think about, is there a BART station that's going to connect that city to the big city?
Yeah.
How, are you thinking about the school district? Are you thinking about the parks that are available? Do you even see people go to the parks? Is there bars? Is there restaurants? Is there coffee shops? Do people love there? Ask people. That's what I did. I asked people that live in my community, what they liked about the community, how long have they been living here? And to my surprise, people that have been living where I live have been here for at least, from what I've heard, is 15 years. It was the minimum. I live among a lot of retired people who
Okay.
have been in the city for a long time, and that gave me confidence in terms of buying property here. I asked them about safety. I asked them about schools, about even utility. Is it more expensive here? Is it less expensive? What's your experience been like? What's traffic like in is there a lot of traffic in the morning? If so, during what times? You want to get all those logistics from locals. Right now it's difficult because of COVID. Of
No
course,
one wants to
approaching
talk
people
to.
is going to be
Right.
it's going to be tough. But hopefully when this is all over, if you can, I would say talk to locals. That will give
Absolutely.
you a better idea of the market that you're in.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that. I think that was very valuable for the listeners so far. So appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to pivot over before we finish up here, Luis. Thank you again for talking about your real estate experience. But really, the other thing I wanted to ask you, we're in 2021 right now. 2020 was obviously a really difficult year for a lot of people, and you were able to make something good out of it. So again, kudos to you for that. But really, where do you see yourself being by 2030? Like within the next 9 years? I know it's, again, very broad, open-ended question, but I'm sure that you've thought about, your 5 to 10 year plans and seeing that you know, we have about 9 years left of this decade. I thought I would ask you that question to finish us off.
I can't give you, a response that I'm going to hold myself to because I don't know. Eric, that's a long shot, but where I want to be, I'll tell you where I want to be.
Fair enough.
I want to be at its C-suite level position by that time,
Cool.
where I want to be
And
the
and
CEO of my company by that point.
for
So
people that don't know C-suite, that means executive. Just for everyone listening. Sorry, go on.
yeah, so that's my goal. Either be at an executive level position at a company, hopefully a technology company, or I want to pivot into entrepreneurship and start my own company.
Cool.
So hopefully, one of the two will happen, and I really hope it does. And
Nice.
more than happy to do another call and when that happens, and tell people about my experience as well.
Yeah.
And help others to also who are curious and who want to improve. I'm more than happy to give any sort of help, whether it's through just a simple talk or connecting people with resources. I believe that we all have the responsibility, so definitely open to helping anyone out. So just keep me
Yeah.
updated with the audience. If anyone has questions or wants to email me, like, let them know that I'm available. More than happy
Yeah.
to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely, anyone that comments on this, I'll for sure let them know. Thank you so much again, Luis, for hopping on the call. I think you were able to provide some pretty valuable insights, especially for people that are just graduating from college and might be in loads of debt and are struggling to find a job. Seeing a success story like this really just makes it feel like it is possible, and you just have to take the initiative. You have to put yourself out there. You have to start being comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And that's
Yes.
all the things that really you embody, and I aspire to be as well, my friend. So thank you again for hopping on the call, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.